$200. That's what it cost. The guy meets you in a gravel driveway. The mower's sitting out there in the weeds, and he turns the key, and the thing coughs, sputters, and rumbles to life. You're grinning. He's grinning. You wrestle it onto the trailer thinking you just robbed the man blind, a running riding mower for $200. Who even does that? You do. And for about 3 weeks, you're the smartest guy in the neighborhood. Then the grass gets tall, and the mower that ran so sweet in that driveway starts telling you the truth. First, it's a little thing. You fix it, no big deal. Then, it's another little thing. Then, another. And by the time July hits, there's a stack of receipts sitting on your workbench. And when you add them all up, they come out to more than 4 times what you paid for the whole machine. Now, this isn't some horror story about one cursed lemon. This is what a $200 bargain actually costs you by the end of summer, part by part, receipt by receipt. And the exact moment it quits being a deal and turns into a hole you can't climb out of. Because the repair that finally breaks your back, it's not the one you're bracing for. Stick around. Let's back up to that driveway, because the trap is set before you ever hand over the cash. Here's the thing about a used rider that fires up on the first crank: it tells you almost nothing. A mower can start beautifully and still be worn out underneath, and the seller knows it. When somebody's dumping a running tractor for $200, that price is the tell. Nobody gives away a healthy machine. They're selling the problem, not the mower. They just get to keep the problem a secret because you're standing in their yard, excited, with cash in your pocket and a trailer already backed up. Watch what a smart seller does. He starts it cold and lets it idle while you talk, so you never hear how rough it runs under load. He never drops the deck and cuts anything in front of you. He keeps it on flat ground so you don't feel the drive get weak on a hill. And 9 times out of 10, he says the magic words: "Runs great, just don't need it anymore." That line has separated more people from their money than any late-night infomercial. What you can't see from the seat is the whole reason it's cheap. You can't see the bearings that are one hot afternoon from letting go. You can't see the fuel that turned to varnish over a winter of sitting. You can't see how many hours are really on the drivetrain, because most of these machines don't even have an hour meter, and the ones that do can be swapped for a cheap unit that reads 0. You're buying a stranger's neglect and calling it a steal, so you pay the $200, you feel great, and then you actually try to mow your yard. Week 1 is where the honeymoon ends, and the real test begins. You drop the deck, ease into the thick stuff, and the engine that purred in the driveway suddenly bogs, surges, and damn near stalls every time the grass gets tall. That's not bad gas. That's a carburetor clogged with varnish from sitting, and no amount of fresh fuel is going to talk it out of that. Then you notice the whole deck buzzing hard enough to blur your vision. Worn spindle bearings, the blades mounting points, hammering themselves to death. And when you point it up the first slope in your yard, the thing slows to a crawl and whines like it's begging you to walk instead. None of this shows up on flat ground at idle. All of it shows up the second you ask the machine to do the one job you bought it for. And this is the moment that decides everything. So be honest with yourself here. You've got 2 roads. Road 1, you cut your losses, list it for $250, and let the next optimist inherit the headache. Almost nobody does that. Road 2, the one you're actually going to take, is you tell yourself it's just a couple of small fixes. It runs, right? It just needs a little love. You order one part. That single decision, right there, is how a $200 mower becomes a $900 mower. Not in one swing, in 100 small cuts. Let's start counting them. The first repairs are the sneaky ones, small enough to ignore, reasonable enough to justify, and expensive enough to start adding up. You start with that surging engine, so you order a carburetor. An aftermarket carb for one of these runs about $45 to $50, and honestly, swapping it is the good news of this whole story. It's an afternoon job, and the machine actually runs right afterward. You feel vindicated. See? Just needed a carb. Except the battery that cranked fine in the seller's warm garage now can't turn it over on a cool morning, because it was already on its last legs and he knew it. A new lawn tractor battery is another $40 to $60. Then, you finally look under the deck and see the blades, rounded off, bent, one of them cracked. A fresh set of 2 runs you somewhere in the mid-50s. While you're under there, you spot the deck belt cracked and glazed, so that's another $25 to $35, and the drive belt that's slipping on hills is a separate belt. Call it another $25 to $35 on top. And the front tire that's been going flat every morning, it's dry rotted, not punctured, so a tire and wheel gets you for $30 to $45. And because you're not an idiot, you do the oil, the filters, and the spark plug it obviously never got, a basic tune-up in parts, $25 to $40. Now stop and add that up in your head. Every one of those was a small, sensible, I'm already in here decision. Together, they've quietly stacked to somewhere around $350 to $400 in parts. And that's if you turned every wrench yourself in your own garage. The second you hand any of it to a shop, that math changes fast, because small engine labor runs roughly $55 to $135 an hour, and some shops go higher. A quick carbon belt job you didn't have time for can double on the invoice from labor alone. So you're $200 in on the mower and pushing $400 in fixes. And here's the part that stings. The machine is finally cutting decent. You think you're done. You think you made it. You're about to find out what all that neglect was really hiding. It's July. The mower's been running for a few weeks and you've almost forgotten the receipts. Then, halfway across the yard, you hear it, a low whine from underneath that wasn't there yesterday. The tractor starts losing power on flat ground. Push the pedal, and it just lags. Like the drive is slipping even though nothing's slipping. That's the transmission. And on a cheap consumer rider, that's the one that owns you. Here's what nobody tells the bargain hunter. Most of these lawn tractors don't have a gearbox you shift. They've got a sealed hydrostatic transaxle, a unit that uses fluid under pressure to move you. One of the most common ones in consumer riders by the maker Tough Torque's own description is a light-duty sealed design that a lot of manufacturers label as no maintenance. That label is a lie by omission. The fluid inside still breaks down with heat and hours, and when a previous owner runs it hard for years and never touches that fluid, which is exactly the kind of owner who sells a tractor for $200, the internals cook themselves. By the time it winds, the damage is usually already done. Now you're standing in front of a genuinely bad choice. If you're lucky and caught it early, a shop can flush and refill the hydrostatic unit for somewhere around $140 to $320, and maybe you buy yourself another season. If you're not lucky, and on a neglected machine, you're usually not, you're replacing the transaxle. Installed, a transmission replacement on these runs from about $625 into the thousands, and the replacement unit by itself, brand new, can run up into the 700s before anybody even touches a wrench. Sit with that number for a second. The transmission repair, on its own, can cost more than 3 times what you paid for the entire mower. And it lands right on top of the 400 you've already sunk into carbs and belts and blades. That's the repair I told you about at the start, the one you weren't bracing for. Everybody expects to buy a battery or a belt on a used machine. Almost nobody walks into a $200 deal thinking transmission. That's the one that turns a project into a money pit, and it's waiting inside a huge share of the cheap riders on the market right now. Let's total the damage. Lay the receipts out on the bench and do the honest math. You paid $200 for the mower. The carburetor was $45 to $50. The battery, $40 to $60. Blades, mid-50s. 2 belts, $50 to $70 together. The front tire, $30 to $45. The tune-up, $25 to $40. That drip alone, the small stuff, the fixes that each felt like nothing, already put you somewhere near $350 to $400 in parts if you did every bit of it yourself. Then the hydrostatic drive gave up. Best case, a flush at $140 to $320. Realistic case, on a neglected machine, a transaxle job that starts around $625 and climbs. Add the mower, add the drip, add the transmission. Do it with the low, most forgiving numbers on every single line. Assume you got lucky and you are still standing north of $900 by summer. Hand even part of that work to a shop instead of doing it yourself, or draw the transaxle instead of the flush, and $900 is your floor, not your ceiling. That's the whole trick the $200 price tag plays on you. It never asks for the $900 up front. It takes it from you in installments, one reasonable sounding repair at a time. Until you've spent new tractor money on a machine, you'll still be babysitting next spring. So does that mean never buy used? No, not even close, because a used rider can absolutely be the smartest money you spend if you know what separates the deal from the trap. Here's the honest version, and it cuts both ways. A well-kept used riding mower is one of the best values in the whole equipment world. Plenty of these machines run 20-25 years with nothing but fluid changes and the occasional belt. The difference between a $200 heartbreak and a $500 workhorse isn't luck. It's what the last owner did, and whether you checked before you paid. So before you hand anybody cash, do the things the seller is hoping you skip. Start it cold yourself. If he's already got it warmed up and idling when you pull in, ask why. Then put it under load. Drop the deck and actually cut something. And drive it up a real slope, because flat ground at idle hides every sin this machine has. Listen. Under the deck for the growl of dying spindle bearings. Ask to see any service records at all and watch his face when you do. And pop the drive. Feel for that hesitation, that whine, that lag under power, because the transmission is the one repair that can cost more than the mower, and it's the one you can't eyeball from the seat. If the seller won't let you load it up and test it on a hill, that's your answer. Walk? There's another mower. Buy the machine somebody maintained, and you can win big. Buy the machine somebody ran into the ground and dumped for $200, and you're not buying a mower. You're buying their neglect on layaway at a brutal interest rate. The price tag was never the deal. The maintenance was. So the next time you see a running rider for the price of a tank of gas and a nice dinner, you'll know exactly what that number is really telling you, and exactly what to check before it tells you the hard way. If this saved you from a driveway you were about to back a trailer into, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because this channel exists to keep your money in your pocket and out of a stranger's neglected machine. Drop a comment and tell me the worst used equipment deal you ever got burned on. I read them, and the horror stories are half the reason I do this. And stick around, because next time we're getting into the exact used mowers that tend to hold up and the ones that'll drain you dry. I'll see you there.